Year 4s. Now, we left yesterday with the Secret Seven Society, deciding that they will look out for a good deed to do or a mystery to solve. So let's find out if they find something to do. We're going to read 2 chapters again today. So chapter 3, The Cross Old Man. They didn't build an army, of course. They'd only had time to build 4 snowmen. The snow was thick and soft in the field, and it was easy to roll it into big balls and use them for snowmen. Scamper had a lovely time helping them all. Janet put the cap on one of the snowmen, and Peter put the old coat around his snowy shoulders. They found 4 stones for his eyes and nose, and a piece of wood for his mouth. They gave him a stick under his arm. He looked the best of the lot. "I suppose it's time to go home now," said Colin at last. "My dinner's at 12:30. Worst luck." "Well, we better all go home," said Pam. "We'll all have to wash and change our things, and put our gloves out to dry. Mine are soaking, and my hands are cold." "So are mine. I know they'll hurt awfully as soon as they begin to get a bit warm," said Barbara, shaking her wet hands up and down. "Oh, they're beginning to hurt now." They left the snowman in the field and went out of the nearby gate. Opposite was an old house. It was empty except for one room at the bottom, where dirty curtains hung across the window. "Who lives there?" asked Pam. "Only a caretaker," said Janet. "He's very old and very deaf and awfully bad-tempered." They hung over the gate and looked at the desolate old house. "It's quite big," said Colin. "I wonder who it belongs to and why they don't live in it." "Isn't the path up to the house lovely and smooth with snow?" said Janet. "Not even the caretaker has trodden on it. I suppose he uses the back gate." "Oh, Scamper, you naughty dog, come back!" Scamper had squeezed under the gate and gone bounding up the smooth, snowy path. The marks of his feet were clear to be seen. He barked joyfully. The curtains at the ground floor window moved, and a cross, wrinkled old face looked out. Then the window was thrown up. "You get out of here! Take your dog away! I won't have children or dogs here, pestering little varmints!" Scamper stood and barked loudly at the old caretaker. He disappeared. Then a door opened at the side of the house, and the old man appeared with a big stick. He shook it at the alarmed children. "I'll whack your dog till it's black and blue," shouted the man. "Scamper, Scamper, come here!" shouted Peter. But Scamper seemed to have gone completely deaf. The caretaker advanced on him, holding the stick up to hit the spaniel. Peter pushed open the gate and tore up the path to Scamper, afraid he'd be hurt. I'll take him, he shouted to the old man. "What's that you say?" said the cross old fellow, lowering his stick. "What do you want to go and send your dog in here for?" "I didn't. He came in himself," called Peter, slipping his fingers into Scamper's collar. "Speak up, I can't hear you," bellowed the old man, as if it was Peter who was deaf and not himself. Peter bellowed back, "I didn't send my dog in." All right, don't shout," grumbled the caretaker. "Don't you come back here again, that's all, or I'll send the police after you." He disappeared into the side door again. Peter marched Scamper down to the drive and out of the gate. "What a bad-tempered fellow," he said to the others. "He might have hurt Scamper awfully if he'd hit him with that great big stick." Janet shut the gate. "Now you and Scamper have spoiled the lovely smooth path," she said. "Goodness, there's the church clock striking 1:45. We really have to hurry now." "Well, we'll let you know when the next meeting is," shouted Peter as they parted at the corner. "And don't forget the password and your badges." They all went home. Jack was the first in because he lived very close. He rushed into the bathroom to wash his hands. Then he went to brush his hair. "Oh, I'd better put my badge away," he thought, and he put up his hands to feel for it. But it wasn't there. He frowned and went into the bathroom. He must have dropped it. He couldn't find it anywhere. He must have dropped it in the field when he was making the snowmen with the others. Oh, bother! Blow! "Mother's away, so she won't make me a new one," he thought, "and I'm sure Miss Ellie wouldn't." Miss Ellie was his sister's governess. She liked Susie, Jack's sister, but she thought Jack was dirty, noisy, and bad-tempered. He wasn't really, but somehow he never did behave very well with Miss Ellie. "I'll ask her if she will make me one," he decided. After all, I've been very good these last 2 days. Miss Ellie might perhaps have said she would make him a badge if things hadn't gone so terribly wrong at dinner time. I know where you've been this morning, said Susie slyly, when the three of them were at the table. Ha ha, you've been to your silly secret society. You think I don't know anything about it. Well, I do. Jack glared at her. Shut up. You ought to know better than to talk about other people's secrets in public. You just hold that horrid interfering tongue of yours. Don't talk like that, Jack, said Miss Ellie at once. What's the password? Went on the annoying Susie. I know what the last one was because you wrote it down in your notebook so as not to forget it, and I saw it. It was... Jack kicked out under the table, meaning to get Susie on the shin. But most unfortunately, Miss Ellie's long legs were in the way. Jack's boot hit her hard on the ankle. She gave a loud cry of pain. Oh, my ankle! How dare you, Jack! Leave the table and go without your dinner. I shall not speak another word to you all day long if that's how you behave. Oh, I'm awfully sorry, Miss Ellie, muttered Jack, scarlet with shame. I didn't mean to kick you. It's the kicking that matters, not the person, said Miss Ellie coldly. It doesn't make it any better knowing that you meant to kick Susie, not me. Leave the room, please. Jack went out. He didn't dare slam the door, though he felt like it. He wasn't cross with Susie anymore. He had caught sight of her face as he went out of the room, and he had seen that she was alarmed and upset. She had meant to tease him, but she hadn't meant him to lose his nice dinner. He kicked his toes against each step as he went upstairs. It was a pity that he'd been sent out before the jam tarts were served. Oh, he liked those so much. Oh, Miss Ellie. Now she certainly wouldn't make a new badge for him, and probably he would be turned out of the society for losing it. Peter had threatened to do that to anyone who turned up more than once without a badge. I seem to remember something falling off when I was making that last snowman, thought Jack. I think I'll go out and look this afternoon. I'd better go before it snows again or I'll never find it. But Miss Ellie caught him as he was going out and stopped him. No, Jack, you are to stay in today after that extraordinary behaviour of yours at the dinner table, she said sternly. You will not go out to play any more today. But I want to go and find something I lost, Miss Ellie, argued Jack, trying to edge out. Did you hear what I said? Said Miss Ellie, raising her voice, and poor Jack slid indoors again. All right, he'd simply go out at night then and look with his torch. Miss Ellie would not stop him from doing what he wanted to do. Chapter 4. What happened to Jack? Well, Jack was as good as his word. He went to bed at his usual time after saying a polite good night to Miss Ellie, but he didn't get undressed. He put on his coat and his cap instead. He wondered whether he dared go downstairs and out of the garden door yet. Perhaps I'd better wait to see if Miss Ellie goes to bed early, he thought. She sometimes goes up to read in bed. I don't want to be caught. Should only go and split on me when Mother comes home. So he took a book and he sat down. Miss Ellie waited for the 9 o'clock news on the wireless, and then she locked up the house and came upstairs. Jack heard her shut the door of her room. Good, now I could go. He slipped his torch into his pocket because it really was a very dark night. The moon was not yet up. He crept downstairs quietly and went to the garden door. He undid it gently. The bolt gave a little squeak, but that was all. He stepped into the garden. His feet sank quietly into the snow. He made his way to the lane and he went down to the field, flashing his little torch as he went. The snow glimmered up, and there was a dim whitish light all around from it. He soon came to the field where they had built the snowmen, and he climbed over the gate. The snowmen stood silently in a group together, almost as if they were waiting and watching for him. Jack didn't altogether like it. He thought one moved, and he drew his breath in sharply. But of course it hadn't. It was just his imagination. Don't be silly, he told himself sternly. You know they're only made of snow. Be sensible and look for your drop button. He switched on his torch, and the snowman gleamed even whiter than before. The one with the eyes, the nose, and the mouth, with the cap and the coat on, seemed to look at him gravely as he hunted here and there. Jack turned his back on them. You may only have stone eyes, but you seem to be able to look at me with them all the same, he said to the silent snowman. Now don't go tapping on me on the shoulder and making me jump." Then he gave a sudden exclamation. He had found his badge. There lay the button in the snow with SS embroidered on it for Secret 7. Hurrah! He must have dropped it here after all then. He picked it up. It was wet with snow. He pinned it carefully onto his coat. That really was a bit of luck to find it so easily. Now he could go home and get into bed. He was cold and sleepy. His torch suddenly flickered and then went out. "Blow," said Jack. "The battery's gone. It might have lasted till I got home. Really, it might. Well, it's a good thing I know my way." He suddenly heard a noise down the lane and saw the headlights of a car. It was coming very slowly. Jack was surprised. The lane led nowhere at all. Was the car lost? He'd better go and put the driver on the right road. If so, people often got lost on roads when it was snowbound. He went to the gate. The car came slowly by, and then Jack saw that it was towing something rather big. What could it possibly be? The boy strained his eyes to see. It wasn't big enough for a removal van, and yet it looked rather like the shape of one. It wasn't a caravan either, because there were no wide windows at the side. Were there any windows at all? Jack couldn't see any. Well, whatever was this curious van? And where was it going? The driver simply must have made a mistake. The boy began to climb over the gate, and then he suddenly sat still. The car's headlights had gone out. The car itself had stopped, and so had the thing it was towing. Jack could make out the dark shapes of the car and the van behind, standing quite still. What was it all about? Somebody spoke to somebody else in a low voice. Jack could see that 1 or 2 men had got out of the car, but he could not hear their footsteps because of the snow. Now he wished the moon was up. Then he could hide behind the hedge and see what was happening. He heard a man's voice speaking more loudly. "Nobody's about, is there?" "Only that deaf fellow," said another voice. "Well, have a look, will you?" said the first voice, "just in case." Jack slipped quickly down from the gate as he saw a powerful torch flash out. He crouched behind the snowy hedge, scraping snow over himself. There came the soft crunch of footsteps walking over frosty snow by the hedge. The flashlight shone over the gate, and the man gave an exclamation. "Who's there? Who are you?" Jack's heart beat so hard against that it hurt. He was just about to get up and show himself and say who he was when the man at the gate began to laugh. "Oh, my word! Look here, Nibs! A whole lot of snowmen standing out there. I thought they were alive at first, watching for us. I got a scare all right." Another man came softly to the first, and he laughed too. "Kids' work, I suppose," he said. "Yes, they look real in this light. There's no one out here at this time of night, Mac. Come on, let's get down to business." They went back towards the car. Jack sat up trembling. What in the world could these men be doing here in the snowy darkness, outside an old empty house? Should he try to see what they were up to? He didn't want to in the least. He wanted to go home as quickly as he could. He crept to the gate again. He heard queer sounds from where the men were, as if they were unbolting something, opening the van perhaps. And then there came a sound that sent Jack helter-skelter over the gate and up the lane as fast as his legs could take him. An angry snorting sound, and then a curious high squeal, and then a noise of a terrific struggle, and with the 2 men panting and grunting ferociously. Jack couldn't think for the life of him what the noise was, and he didn't care either. All he wanted was to get home before anything happened to him. Something was happening to somebody, that was certain, out there on that snowy lane. It would need a very, very brave person to go and interfere, and Jack wasn't brave at all that night. He came to his house, panting painfully. He crept in at the garden door and locked and bolted it. He went upstairs, not even caring if the stairs creaked under his feet. He switched on the light in his bedroom. Oh, that was better. He didn't feel so scared once he had the light on. He looked at himself in the glass. He was very pale, and his coat was covered in snow. That was through lying in the snowy ditch below the hedge. He caught sight of his badge still pinned to his coat. Well, anyway, he had that. "I went out to find my badge, and goodness knows what else I found," thought the boy. "Golly, I must tell the others. We must have a meeting tomorrow. This is something for the Secret Seven. Wow, I say, what a thrill for them. Well, he couldn't wait to tell them the next day. He must slip out again and go to the shed at the bottom of Peter's garden. He must leave a note out there, demanding a meeting at once. It's important, very, very important, said Jack to himself as he scribbled a note on a bit of paper. It really is something for the society to solve. He slipped down the stairs again and out of the garden door. He wasn't frightened anymore. He ran all the way up the lane and round to Peter's house. The farmhouse looked dark and silent. Everyone was in bed, for they went to bed early on the farm. Jack went down to the old shed. He fumbled at the door. It was locked. His hands felt for the big letters SS on the door itself. He bent down and slid his note under the crack at the bottom. Peter would find it the next day. Then he went home to bed, but not to sleep. Who had made that noise? What was that strange high van? Who were the men? It really was enough to keep anybody awake for hours. Well, there we go. The Secret Seven have found their mystery. Let's see what's going to happen in the next chapter. Are they going to find out who these men were? See you tomorrow.